Good morning and welcome to our Teen Sunday School class. As you can hear in the background, it's our generator, but it's keeping us going.
Nala's trying to sing a little bit in the background too.
So we have a lot of stuff going on this morning. But today and probably the next week or so, we're going to be talking about the events that led up to the resurrection, especially being that April 4th is Easter Sunday. And so we're just going to be talking a little bit about the different things that happened before Jesus rose from the dead and different things. And so I hope you enjoy. There's always scripture. With doing the events, we're going to look at all four Gospels, the first, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because all their events, they all tell their own story. And so, but they tell their own story, but the ending is just the same. Alright, so one of the first things we're going to talk about is the Last Supper. So if Lanee, if you want to get Matthew 26, 20 through 30, Bill, if you want to get Mark, you want to get the Bible? Or that on the page? If you want to get Mark 14, 17 through 26, I'll get Luke 22, 14. That's wrong. 14 to 38.
Maybe you can just do like the Spark Press version. Alright. Now when the even was come, he sat down with the 12. And as they did eat, he said, Verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. And they were exceeding sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I? And he answered and said, He that dippeth his hand with me in the dish, the same shall betray me. The Son of Man goeth as it is written of him, but woe unto that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It had been good for that man if he had not been born. Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? He said unto him, Thou hast said. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it, and brake it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, Take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup and gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine, until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. And when they had sung an hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives.
Alright, that is Matthew's account of the Last Supper. And you see it just, as far as like the detail and stuff in this one, it's just, oh, I should have started instead of it's okay. In Matthew's account, it does say that they went and go to the cities to such a man and said to him, The Master says, My time is at hand. I'll keep the Passover at the house of the disciples, and the disciples did Jesus appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Okay. So that was Matthew's account of the Last Supper. And as you see in these verses, the Lord was, he broke bread, which is his body, and he gave, he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to him, saying, Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. And when we do communion, we do the bread and grape juice, and it's in remembrance of what happened to the Lord and how we didn't have to go through what he went through. So this is Matthew's account. Now let's look at Mark's account. Phil?
Which verse?
Mark 14, 17 through 26.
And in the evening he cometh with the 12. And as they sat and did eat, Jesus said, Verily I say unto you, one of you which eateth with me shall betray me. And they began to be sorrowful and to say unto him one by one, Is it I? And another said, Is it I? Original. And he answered and said to them, It is one of the 12 that dippeth with me in the dish. The Son of Man indeed goeth as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of God is betrayed, the Son of Man is betrayed. Good were it for that man if he had never been born. This day Jesus did eat. Jesus took bread and blessed and brake it and gave it to them and said, Take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank. And he said unto them, This is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many. Verily I say unto you, I'll drink no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink it new in the kingdom of God. And when he had sung it, is that, should have sung there. Verse 25. Just now they're going out on the mountain of Olives.
That's it. 25. Oh, it says 25. Okay. So as you hear, their accounts are pretty similar. Although if you go a couple scriptures before that, it's a little more detailed, and it's talking about them going to ask of the house. And it said, in the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said to him, Where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? And he sent forth 2 of his disciples and said unto them, Go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. And wheresoever he shall go in, say ye to the good men of the house, The master said, Where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room furnished and prepared, there make ready for us. And the disciples went forth and came into the city, and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover, and in the evening he cometh with the 12. So when you look at
covered in like 3 verses in here, because a lot of it was he was giving instructions.
yes, well that's what I was gonna say. No, you're good. No, I'm glad you're looking back at it. His instructions in Mark were more detailed than his the instructions that he gave.
In Matthew, all he says is, Go into the city to such a man and say unto him, The master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. Whereas here he's like, Go into the city, follow the man with the pitcher of water. The master saith, Where's the guest chamber?
That sounds like because Mark wasn't one of the disciples, right? Was he doing that first coming out, right?
Well, I know that
Luke isn't, and I think
Luke definitely.
I don't know Matthew. Matthew sounds like what he thought, like what he heard, and then Mark sounds like he asked a lot of people about, like a lot of the disciples, what they heard, and it's different people. So you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Some people may not have heard. Matthew may not have remembered that about the
Or
picture.
maybe Matthew didn't remember the thing about the picture. And
It's like Luke is often much more detailed than the other Gospels.
Well, we're about to find out and see.
Because
that's probably why there's more
This is
scripture.
backed up by research from people who, like all types of people who encountered Jesus, people who were around him.
Yeah.
So his book is filled with a lot of information that the others don't have.
Yes. And that's why I wanted to look at the different accounts, because one will be more detailed than the other. And with me, when I read things, I kind of picture those things. And when reading listening to Bill read Mark's account, I'm imagining them. They see this man carrying a pitcher of water, and they're following this man, and then they go to where he's going, and they talk to the man of the house, good man of the house, and they ask about the guest room. I mean, it's just more detailed. And whereas Matthew also said, tell the man, the Lord, what did he say? The Lord is ready.
The master saith, My time
is at
I will
hand.
keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples.
Yes. And so, whereas Mark didn't mention that, but I'm
So
pretty...
the master saith, Whereas the guest chamber where I shall eat the Passover.
Yes. And so, just little little details in there.
I mean, everyone's going to remember. Even if you were there at the same time, everybody's going to have little different memories.
Yes.
Of the story.
But when you put it all together and stuff like that, it's just...
There are no, like, major discrepancies
No.
from story to story. It's
No.
all mostly the same. It's just little details. that
Right.
vary.
All right, now let's read...
See, he wasn't, to most accounts, he wasn't a direct apostle, but was one of the close followers of Jesus.
Mark?
He wasn't one of the, yes.
Okay.
He was known as John Mark. So
John Mark, John Mark, when you think about it, yeah.
But he probably knew a lot, as far as he wasn't writing a personal first-hand account.
Yeah.
He was writing about what other people said.
That makes
And
sense.
John, see, the thing is, Luke has more of a detailed look at it as far as the overall, like...
Well, Luke has the most scriptures.
Like the
about
most
it, too.
details,
Yeah.
and John has the most personal details, I think, because usually he has a lot more of what Jesus said and what he was, saying.
Yeah.
As far as that,
I'm just looking at Luke's account right now. If you look at it, he gives a lot of detail into what Jesus actually said at the supper.
All right,
rather
so
than
let's go ahead and read that. We're going to have to put this...
Let's split it up.
Yes, all right. Luke 22:14 through 38. So you see there's more scriptures involved in Luke's account than in, right? Luke. Yeah. And then in Mark and Matthew's account. Well, even looking at the scripture on John's account, there's a lot more scriptures involved in Luke also out of the 4 books. All right, so...
Probably because John's gospel, John tends to take a more theological approach to things rather than just saying what happened.
Yeah.
That's why John is my favorite.
Yeah.
Because he always gives insight into things.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because
Even just by
the
his
disciple that
perspective on
Jesus
things.
Yes.
He uses subtle things to show details, not even like verbally, but he shows details that other
Well, and
people.
this was one of the probably biggest events for the disciples throughout the time of Jesus. So, I mean, John probably would remember that more.
Right,
It wasn't anything else to try to remember exactly what he said, because this was one of the most important speeches
Because John was
that
supposed
Jesus
to
would give.
Yes.
Right.
All right, so let's start. Let's do 22:14. There's a lot. There's 38. So
If you do 21 and 20, I mean, sorry, 12 and 13.
That's a lot. Okay. So I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
And I'll probably stop at verse 25. Right? Or I'll stop. Okay.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I cannot get back to you. Go ahead and get back to you. We get 8 verses.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 14 and 30. Okay. So we're going to start at 14 and 21. And when the hour was come, he sat down, and the 12 apostles with him. And he said unto them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of God. And he took the cup and gave thanks and said, Take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God shall come. And he took bread and gave thanks and brake it and gave unto them, saying, This is my body which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. Likewise, also the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. And then it says, But behold, the hand of him that betrayeth me is with me on the table. So, Lanee, you want to read 22 to what? Yes, 22 to 30.
Okay. And truly the Son of Man goeth, as it was determined, but woe unto that man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to inquire among themselves which of them it was that should do this thing. And there was also a strife among them, which of them should be accounted the greatest. And he said unto them, The kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. But ye shall not be so. But he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he that is chief as he that doth serve. For whether is greater he that sitteth at meat or he that serveth? Is not he that sitteth at meat? But I am among you as he that serveth. Ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations. And I appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Father hath appointed unto me, that ye may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel.
All right, do the 31 and 38.
And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not, and when thou art converted, strengthen the brethren. And he said unto him, Lord, I am ready to go with thee, both into prison and to death. And he said, I tell thee, Peter, the cock shall not crow this day before that thou shalt thrice deny that thou knowest me. And he said unto them, When I sent you without person, scrip, and shoes, lack ye anything? And they said, Nothing. Then said he unto them, But now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip, and he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. For I say unto you that this that is written must yet be accomplished in me. And he was reckoned among the transgressors, for the things concerning me have an end. And he said, Lord, behold, here are 2 swords. And he said unto them, It is enough. It's interesting.
That is very interesting.
What's the sword thing about?
It almost sounds like it would make it possible for, because at the time everyone thought that Jesus was going to be the guy who basically did the cult thing and kind of just kill all the Romans and take
over
Israel back.
Yeah.
And it almost sounds like, and that's probably what set up Peter to cut off the ear of the servant, is that moment where he's like, if you don't have a sword, buy one. And they're like, well, here are 2 swords right here, what are we going to do with them? And he's like, that's enough. That's as many as we need, I think. I don't know. I think he was setting it up so Peter would cut off the ear so he was able to heal him.
Well, I think...
Right before his...
Yeah, foreshadowing,
Right.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they might have not have blocked.
I think him saying it is enough, that's not him being like, those are enough swords. That's like, it gives me more of the like, that's enough. Like, stop.
Yeah, stop.
It gives me more of that. Like,
Yeah.
because violence isn't the end.
No, exactly.
Well,
which he further proves in the garden later.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you also look at Luke's account, you'll see that the detail he put in about Simon, about Peter, and
about Jesus settling that dispute between them about who was greater.
Yes. So Luke's account tells you about the cock that crowed 3 times, and that Peter would deny him, even though Peter said that he wouldn't. So there's some more detail put in into the
which is obviously, you can tell, like the way that he kind of swiftly changes from one subject to another. You can tell that it's because he researched topics specifically.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a conversational thing. It's like him giving specific details about the conversation. Which is cool.
Well, and I think that some of this is that he doesn't really. I mean, he does refer to his death. But before this, when he was talking, let's see, when he was talking about the where is it? He was saying that I'm not going to eat until the thing is accomplished. It almost sounds like he's talking about an uprising where, and the blood that's shed. It almost does sound like it would be a revolution that maybe he would, perish in but still win. Which could be taken to the disciples like that, which is why they would, when the Roman soldiers came, they were unprepared for, and Peter was like, hey, I'm going to start the fight, and then Jesus was like, hey, stop fighting.
Yes. I think that's what he said. It is enough.
Everyone at that point assumed that was what was going to happen, and Jesus was going to take the Romans and kill them all or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that's what they had wanted for the, past however long the Romans had been, hundreds of years.
Yeah. Well, you see that in Matthew and Mark's account, it just says 2 of the disciples. In Luke's account, it tells you the names of them, and it said he sent Peter and John. Yeah. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Those are his main
Peter and
guys.
Yeah, because wasn't it Peter and John
went to
the tomb?
Yeah.
And so
more foreshadowing.
Yes. All right, so now let's
look
look
at
at
John was the disciple that Jesus loved, and Peter was the disciple that
loved Jesus.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's what.
That's why they were.
Yeah. The funny thing about like if you read the other accounts, then they just say about the betrayal. That's the only thing they say about the Last Supper.
they don't say about him
Because a lot
talking
of that
to
other
Peter.
stuff is so important
Yeah.
to the story. Well, they don't. We have it in the other gospels, so we have it, but you know.
Yeah. Well, they don't talk about Peter and how he told Peter that he was going to deny him 3 times.
Yeah.
And so.
And I don't remember exactly. I just know John's account is a lot longer. But
oh yeah, the details of what they said as far as the conversation
is in John,
a
yes.
lot longer.
Well, honestly, if you would just look at
This
John
is the second
chapter
amount of olives.
13,
Yeah.
John chapter 13, there's 38 verses.
Yeah, it's like the second
John
amount of
goes into
olives.
so much
It's
detail.
Well,
just-
it's
that's
for
we had a lot
instance,
of time on the island.
now
We had
before the
notes.
feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end.
You can immediately tell
And
from that
just-
first verse.
yes.
The tone is
It's
completely
different. It's so different.
Rather
Well,
than like
well,
take
and
back-
they had
but
a lot
remember,
of
before the Last Supper, what did Jesus do? Didn't he wash his disciples' feet?
Right.
This is John's account that talks about the washing of the feet.
It's
Because
so interesting
everyone else
because
was focusing on other details. Plus, John was in exile and had plenty of hindsight because other things would come, later that would show that. But it made it a lot easier because he would remember everything and he was able to see what happened just from that first part. He wasn't just saying that this is what happened next. He's
No,
like,
this
is the context of the event and
Yeah.
what's going to happen
and the best
why he
part,
did this.
the best part about everything is that the entire book of John, it's shown through the filter of John's love for Jesus.
Yes.
Right.
And that makes it so much more beautiful. And it just shows you why he remembers everything and wrote down things. Because they were important to him spiritually.
Yes.
I love that.
Well, when you've had a friend that's your best friend, say like from when y'all were almost like raised together. So y'all know so much about each other.
And you have so many memories
together.
Because that's like your favorite person.
Yes, and like the love that y'all have, between each other.
You just have like a bond.
It's a bond, yes. And so this is John and Jesus. Their bond was, I don't even know what the word for it is, but
I would have loved to be best friends with Jesus.
oh,
when he was on Earth.
hello, yes.
And it almost
Yes.
sounds like,
John I hope
Yes.
he's my best friend, but
No,
when he was on Earth,
face
that's
to
so
face,
different,
yes. What are you
it
saying,
almost
Bill?
sounds like John would, was like listening, trying to intently remember everything that Jesus said. Probably more so than the other disciples who would, not that, to their credit, they listened, but a lot of them would say,
John
this is the important, like they would say, this is the important part of the story. This is why they did it. He was going to say something about him betraying him.
But John's like, this is what was
kind of like
important
just
to me.
telling the basis of it, which is, kind of, hey, Jesus just talking about the guy who's going to betray him and they're having the Passover, and everybody kind of got the this is my body thing.
Yeah.
The way that John writes this, though, I think he would have been the type of guy after like a long day, Jesus did a bunch of miracles, or after all this, he would be the type of person who would lie awake at night and think about everything that Jesus had done that day, because
Or the type of person to write
so
everything
much.
down.
Well, that too, right? And I'm wondering if because he would,
Maybe-
Jesus.
Maybe he like kept a journal or something, and that's why
Yeah.
he was so detailed.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm wondering is after Jesus died, then when he was dying, he gave Mary to John as his mother. I wonder if he would talk over the things because Mary wasn't there for a lot of that. I imagine as far as she wasn't there for.
Oh,
he would probably say oh, this is what happened before this, or this is what Jesus said to try. Even it was only 3 days until he rose, but maybe after that he would just he could have been the storyteller of this, where he would say this is what Jesus said because he remembered the most about it and would keep refreshing it in his memory and going over it and telling people about it.
Right.
All right, so let's read John's account real quick. It's not the whole thing. So
We wouldn't have time to read
we
the
wouldn't
whole
have
thing.
time to read the whole thing. So Lanee, read. It's chapter 13, John 13. It's gonna be 21 to 30. Read 21 to 23. I'll do 24 to 26. Wait, 21 to 24. I'll do 25 to 27, and Bill do 28 to 30.
Okay. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit and testified and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spake. Now there was one leaning on Jesus' bosom, one of his disciples, whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him, that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake. He then lying on Jesus' breast said unto him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. Sorry, I think I read too many verses.
It's okay. Go ahead, Bill.
No, you're 28.
No, you did 20. It was 20.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
I forgot I was supposed to
It's
stop
okay. It's okay. Bill, just finish it. 27.
And after a sop, Satan entered him. Then said Jesus unto him, That thou doest, do quickly. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. For some of them thought, because Judas had the bag, that Jesus had said unto him, Buy those things that we have need of against the feast, or that we should give something to the poor. He then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night. Therefore, when he was gone out, where do I stop?
Oh, right there.
Yeah, that's
30.
That was interesting as far as Peter.
He was lying on Jesus' breast.
Right. Well, I also like how
I
John
don't
doesn't
think- I don't
clutter
think
him.
Was it Peter or was it John?
It was Peter. John was
I
laying
think
on
it was John, but John didn't want to say it was him.
I think John was trying to not clutter it up with being a first-hand account as far as including himself.
Yeah.
I think if
But
he
we
wrote
know
it,
that
everyone
It
would
was
know.
John
Jesus
with
loved.
love. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, but
now
I
there
thought
was leaning
it's
on
funny
Jesus wasn't one of
is
his
that
disciples.
Simon Beck.
Okay, so that's what it was.
So he didn't
It
want to
was,
say
I was leaning on
Yeah.
his. Okay.
he
And
didn't
then
want
it
to turn
talks
into
about
the first
Simon Peter asking.
Which is
And then
he
Simon
didn't
beckoned
ask.
to John. To
Yes.
ask,
Which
because
is
he knew that
interesting, right?
Jesus would take it better from John.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was. I was thinking is John would be closer to Jesus, and Peter was probably thinking if Jesus, because Jesus talked in riddles a whole lot as far as to them.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
and
and he probably
know,
wouldn't have said something directly like
you
it's
know,
this
if
person.
Peter asks too, it's like, oh, there's Peter again.
Yeah.
Love
And
Peter,
so-
but Peter.
And so it would probably be easier, at least in Peter's mind, for Jesus to answer John. Plus, he's right there, and Peter, may not have necessarily been right there.
Yeah.
And I
I
also think
never
it's interesting that.
noticed that before about the leaning
Yeah,
on
the-
Jesus wasn't-
Well, and I think it's interesting that he would just beckon to him rather than ask himself, because he knew that it would be easier to answer. And it sounds like almost you can tell in here that John, and I don't think he talked to other people. I think he would talk among the other disciples, and that's how the accounts would be so far together, because you can see for some of them thought because Judas had the bag that Jesus had said to him, buy those things. It's almost like he was telling
probably
the story like,
discussed it with,
what did
yeah.
you probably think of? What did you think about this? And
He
almost-
heard it from the source, like
Right.
it was the main source.
And he was
Yeah.
probably paying attention, and he probably knew that Judas was going to betray him. He may not have known in what manner
Yeah.
at that time, but
I
he
don't-
noticed. I don't think anyone else really noticed.
I don't
the whole
understand
song.
how dense you have to be to not notice that Jesus just said, He it is to whom I shall give a sop when I
Well,
dip
but
it.
that's
He
the
dips
thing.
it,
It
gives
was
it to
Peter
him,
beckoning
he
to John, and John asking him who is it, and then Jesus answered John. He may not have been talking to the other disciples.
Oh yeah.
He was
Yeah,
probably
that makes
talking
more
to
sense.
John. Peter was
Yeah.
probably right there or something and heard that as well. But the other disciples didn't hear exactly that. They
No,
just
all
heard
they
Jesus
heard
say-
was
It is like a
that
Friday
thou
supper,
doest, do quickly. That's all his disciples
And then
heard.
he gets up and leaves, and they don't know what he's talking
Because
about.
they know that he keeps the money.
Yes,
Right.
he's a
It would make
treasure.
sense.
Yeah.
Right? It would
And so-
definitely make sense for John to have known who it was and how it would happen, and probably Peter too, maybe at
Which
some
makes
point.
sense because, more John and Peter foreshadowing because they were the first
There's
two.
talk. Yeah.
They
When he
went
says,
to
when he
betray
said,
them.
"One of you shall betray me," then the disciples looked at one another, doubting of whom he spake. They probably didn't just look on one another; they were probably talking loudly about it. I would imagine, like, "Are you going to betray me?" or
Well,
something?
look at Matthew's. Was it Matthew's account? They said, "Is it I?" They were
Right.
like,
they were
asking.
asking. They were asking and trying. There was a clamor, and then that's probably why Peter beckoned to John, because he probably wouldn't have been able to be heard,
And they
John
were
was right there.
exceeding sorrowful. And began every one of them to say, Lord, is it I? Mark.
Right, they probably all started talking to each other, and Peter probably beckoned to John just because he probably couldn't say anything to Jesus at the time because everybody's worried about
Well, you notice John's account. It shows Jesus' feelings also, because it says.
That just shows how in tune with Jesus John
Yes.
really was.
And it said, where is it at? Let me see. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in his spirit and testified and said, and just think about this. When you're troubled and stuff like that, it's just not like saying, one of you is going to betray me. No, it's like, verily, verily, I say to you, that one of you shall betray me. And he's troubled by this.
That's a hard thing
That
to say to your
is.
best
It
friend.
really is. And John's account gives the name of the person that is going to betray Jesus. And the other ones, it says that he's going to be betrayed, but doesn't give who it
and how
was
Jesus
and how.
told,
Yes.
Well, and another reason Peter might have beckoned to John is that you really don't want to be told that it's you,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't really know. So I imagine Peter looks at John, sees he's the disciple that Jesus loved, and he's like, there's no way that he's going to be the one who betrays him. So he would ask John.
I was just rereading Luke's account. Luke didn't say anything about betrayal.
No.
Other than from Judas's point of view. But Luke didn't say...
Right.
It's funny because he has all these other details that none of the other Gospels have so far. And then he doesn't mention the one thing that everyone else did.
Yeah.
Probably because he had the input of everyone else. They're like, no, I put that in mine. And I was like, okay, plagiarism.
Well, no, he probably would just say that he was saying the facts of it. So he would probably just say that he went to the chief priests, and because there were probably not records, but you know what I mean. There were probably people who would say, yeah, he came here and said he was going to betray us for 30 pieces of silver or whatever, and he got it that way. While John knew directly who was responsible because Jesus had told him, or not by not telling him what he would do to them.
Yeah.
That
just show
trouble
the
and
person.
spirit thing, it gives even more tenderness to the relationship between John and Jesus.
Yeah.
Because John could tell, and then after, when Peter beckoned to him, because I'm sure Peter knew him well enough to know, like, hey, you're the one he loves the most. I'm going to let you, because I recognize that he's troubled in spirit. So it just brings even more.
I do love that about even reading John's other accounts about Jesus and how he puts in how Jesus feels about the things.
Because he probably talked to Jesus after, like, except this one, of course.
Yeah.
But he probably, and maybe even after when Jesus came back to earth, maybe he talked to him about it because they were best friends. I mean, that's
what you do with a best friend.
Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine John, with the level of detail, would hold this as the most important conversation they would have with Jesus. Which is why, Jesus talks about, he talks about so many things that Jesus said.
Yeah.
And I imagine he was trying, he was remembering everything because and again, with the benefit of hindsight, he knew that this was the speech that Jesus was giving, probably for the reasons for his death and what would entail, what you should do after that. What you should do after his death.
Well, because if you notice too, he talks about, like, through his life, he tells them that he's gonna die.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they would somehow have to prepare themselves for this. And it wasn't and it wasn't just one time. Throughout his whole ministry, he would mention this, reminding them, I'm only here for a little bit. And so
what I picture when I think of John writing this gospel, I don't know when he wrote it. Probably on the Isle of Patmos, though.
Yeah.
That
I'm pretty sure it's on that one. Or at least most of it.
But I can just kind of, like, in my mind's eye, I can just see him sitting alone, exiled on this island for Jesus, and having all of these shared experiences with Jesus. And then just thinking back, being like, I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I had been that close with Jesus for that long. Honestly,
how did John get revelations, right? How did he know those events? God showed it to him.
That's because there was a vision,
Right.
Yeah, a vision.
What happened is there was probably a vision that was shown that showed all of the events, so he would remember them in a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Because
maybe not even like visions, but dreams that were
right.
visions,
Yeah.
Right. That's what instead of showing the future, Jesus showed him the future future of what would happen, even though a lot of it was masked and riddles
Even though
and analogies.
his present was awful, the past and the future brought him enough encouragement.
Right. And he was probably reminded of the past by God, because that's how there's this much detail. The others were influenced by God, but most of them were self-researching. While John had one of the greatest roles in Revelation, because he basically told the future, which would have been easy for God to show him the past, so he could have clarity on that as well.
All right, so we just talked about the different. We just talked about the Last Supper, to be honest, but the different accounts, and as you've seen us going over and how there was more detail in one, and how one would show more emotion than the other one, of the different accounts that would lead up to Jesus' resurrection. And these were all people that were with Jesus at the time, and some were closer than others, so some of the books are going to be more detailed or give more emotion. So I hope that you will come back with us next week as we talk about some more of the events that led up to the resurrection. And I hope that you enjoyed us as we discussed everything, and what is the word I'm looking for? How wonderful it is to be able to sit and study God's word together,
Yes.
and get the little details that helps us remember and helps put a smile on our face when we're sitting and talking about it. So join us in our Sunday morning service, and we will see you next week.